Blood Drive, Season 1. Episode 1. 1999's The California Territories. Following the world-shattering earthquakes, America regresses into a lawless wasteland where a barrel of oil costs $2,000 per unit. Vehicles with human blood-powered engines are a last option used by cunning drivers. Along a route in the desert, Larry and his pal pursue the racer Grace D'Argento. Grace directs them to turn off the road and stop. Grace turns the tables on Larry as he tries to rape her by putting him in her engine. Grace rips off Larry's friend's arm and fills up her tank with his blood. Grace takes a car to a facility that houses the Mayhem underground racing scene. Since a business called Contra Crime bought police contracts, law enforcement has been privatized. Contra Crime cops Arthur Bailey and Christopher Carter detain a drug addict who is trying to steal water from an automated ration dispenser. The addict refuses to explain how he acquired the strange track markings on his arm when Arthur inquires about them. The addict eventually provides the police with information on a hidden warehouse where they may learn more about the people who pay to take the poor's blood in exchange for freedom from prison. Arthur and Chris subsequently get into the warehouse and find Mayhem, where host Julian Slink is hosting Blood Drive, a lethal race with a $10 million prize. Despite the fact that they are not on official police business, the race has a $10 million prize. Ribbone, Domi, and Cliff, the gentleman and the scholar, Clown Dick, and Fat Elvis are among the racers that Slink introduces. Arthur is forced from his position onto Grace's automobile after being caught spying on the event. Arthur and Grace are both grabbed during the ensuing ruckus and given radio-controlled pulse-charge microbomb injections in their necks. As a result, Arthur and Grace are compelled to race in the Blood Drive. Chris tries to step in, but is unconscious. Arthur jumps out of Grace's car as soon as the race starts. Slink starts using the bomb controls to make Arthur's neck hurt more until Grace returns to pick him up. Grace reveals that she is competing to win the cash in order to free her sister Karma from Cane Hill Hospital's asylum. When Arthur learns that the race cars are powered by human blood, he is horrified and swears that no one will be put into the engine while he is still alive. SGT. Gower refuses to submit a statement concerning vampire automobiles, so she demands that Chris change his report after reading his statement about what he discovered at the warehouse. Chris refuses. Gower assures him that Internal Affairs for Contra Crime would look into the matter. Officer Aki overhears and offers to assist Chris in conducting additional research. While traveling to Mayhemville in Arizona, Blood Drive racers continue on the suicide trail. When they observe Ribbone slicing up captured cheerleaders at the side of the road, Arthur orders Grace to stop. Grace approaches with a knife as Arthur battles Ribbone. Grace disables the gentleman and the scholar's oncoming car with a spike strip. While Grace has the scholar, a master mechanic, fix her automobile, Arthur releases the cheerleaders. The scholar, however, covertly damages Grace's engine. The gentleman is coerced by Arthur to make a promise that he won't kill the cheerleaders before they head back to the road and leave the other men behind. The gentleman implies that he will only maim the girls for their blood once Arthur and Grace have left. The earlier addict is located by Chris and Aki, and he directs them to a parking garage. Chris and Aki break into the structure and find a lab used for collecting human blood. Before Aki assaults, Chris notices that one of the frocking bays has his name on it. Aki is killed by Chris, but she comes back to life and admits she is an android. Chris is captured by an additional Aki wearing a dominatrix outfit. As the other competitors pass them, Grace's automobile breaks down not far from the finish line. Slink begins turning on Grace and Arthur's neck bombs to carry out his threat that the last person to arrive would be killed. Acting on a notion, Grace and Arthur engage in unplanned sexual activity to cause their explosives to short due to the adrenaline. At the finish line, each competitor raises a glass. Arthur receives a warning from Slink that his bomb has been changed and the adrenaline trick will no longer work. Slink presents a business card identifying himself as a Hart Enterprises employee after their argument is finished. When Arthur remembers that Hart Enterprises owns the majority of commercial goods and business entities in America, including Contra crime, he is shocked. Episode 2, Welcome to Pixie Swallow. Day 2 of the race takes place in Arizona, where cook Carl Cox, his seductive daughter Mimi, and her moronic boyfriend Chad operate a roadside diner where they covertly serve human meat. A meeting with Julian Slink is called at the corporate office of Hart Enterprises. Mr. Scuttle, who claims to be in the lobby for an interview since Hart is intending to replace an employee, greets Slink with excitement and nervousness. Slink worries that Scuttle might be making indirect reference to him. In Pixie Swallow, the blood drive racers pause. Chris receives a voicemail from Arthur alerting him that Hart Enterprises controls everything using the payphone at the diner. As a result of Carl Cox overhearing Arthur, the two men engage in a brief argument. Chris is coerced by Aki into watching a Hart Enterprises job advertisement. Chris is told by Aki that he is welcome to look about the place where he is being held and that he is free to go at any time, but Hart wants to hire him. Grace defeats Fat Elvis at the diner and takes his room key from the neighboring motel after Fat Elvis snatches Arthur's burger. Fat Elvis is then captured by Chad and killed by Carl for meat. The gentleman crushes the scholar's heart by revealing that once they win the race, he intends to leave alone after they have sex. Arthur goes back to the diner to wait for Chris' call while Grace takes a shower. In the end, Arthur consoles the discouraged scholar. In his meal, Arthur discovers a fingernail. As Carl and Mimi discuss eliminating all of the racers before their scheme is discovered, Arthur overhears their conversation. Arthur discovers that everyone has started devouring people after he sees Fat Elvis' body. After the revelation, Arthur and Grace throw up in the bathroom. Under Carl's orders, a group of cannibals attack the motel and cafe and murder every racer. When Arthur and Grace attempt to flee, the scholar must once more fix their car. While touring the Hart facility, Chris comes across his phone and hears Arthur's voicemail. When they learn the scholar has been kidnapped and is being held captive in the kitchen, Arthur and Grace force the gentleman to assist them in rescuing the scholar. Slink is informed that Scuttle has been hired as he returns to the Hart lobby. In a fit of fury, Slink savagely beats Scuttle to death. Slink is informed by Aki, who enters the lobby, that Scuttle has actually been appointed as the new maintenance director. The gentleman serves as a watchman as Arthur and Grace battle their way past the cannibals to the diner. During the battle, Ribbone saves a tiny dog named Caligula from a blazing truck. The dog later becomes his new racing partner. Mimi, Chad, and Carl are ready to flee. When Chris uses the payphone to reach Arthur, Arthur instructs Chris to find the Hart file on Grace's sister Karma. Slink learns through Aki that Hart plans to broadcast the clandestine blood drive all over the world. Aki says that Hart had intended to murder Slink because he didn't think he was capable of going global, but his performance in the lobby won him a second chance. Slink vows to increase the bloodshed in the race. Aki informs him that she has show notes. In the diner kitchen, Arthur and Grace engage Carl's group in combat in order to save the scholar. Mimi is kept in a freezer by Arthur. Chad stumbles into the meat grinder after slipping in a pool of blood. Grace is apprehended by Carl, who then escapes with her imprisoned in a cold van. The pain from Arthur's neck bomb grows as the gap between him and Grace widens. The scholar gets to work quickly fixing Grace's automobile. Arthur hurriedly exits the vehicle and pursues Carl's van. The gentleman reprimands his teammate for assisting a rival team. The gentleman is forced into a kiss by the scholar after grabbing his face. Grace is saved by Arthur when he disables Carl's van. Grace approaches and inserts a pair of meat hooks into Carl's head after Arthur has placed him under custody. Chris informs Aki of his decision to remain at Hart Enterprises. Chris is restrained by Aki when she senses his intent to play double agent and gets him ready for behavior modification. Carl's body serves as the fuel for Grace's vehicle. Arthur reveals to Grace that Hart is in charge of both the Blood Drive and Cane Hill Mental Hospital, proving that Hart has been using Grace as a pawn all along. Grace informs Arthur that they will take a side trip to the asylum on the following leg of the race.